Our next topic is emerging adtech powering OTT platforms. Technology has been an enabler in every business, including content. India has moved very fast on the technology front, and more innovations are only waiting to happen. We are waiting to build a strong AdTech solution, an industry recognized AdTech solution, and that will help and grow the OTT ecosystem and monetization. We would like to welcome our speakers on screen. Our moderator is Sunny Nagpal, co-founder and regional managing director, HTT Pool, APAC. Vikram Tanna, Chief Operating Officer, Mazalo. Siddhartha Roy, Chief Operating Officer, Hungama Digital Media. Kunik Patel, Industry Head, Tech, Telco, OEM and QSR, InMobi. Vineet Mehta, Head of Sales, Indian Subcontinent, Brightco. And Rajneel Kumar, Business Head Expansion Projects and Head of Products, Z5 India. I'll leave you the stage.
Thanks, Ron, for the introductions. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining in. Hope you all are keeping safe and fine during these challenging times. In this panel, we are going to discuss the relevance and significance of emerging adtech within the OTT space, reviewing some of the current attributes, challenges, as well as try and get a sneak peek on what's in store for all the brands looking out to reach out to their target audience now that we have a very, very expert panel. I must compliment and congratulate Adgully for putting this together, an extremely elite panel here comprising of some of the top industry experts to share and enlighten us with their views. Let's immediately dive in and sort of throw some facts around it, and we can start delving into the conversations. According to a recent PwC's Global Entertainment and Media Outlook, 2019 to 2023, the OTT marketplace is expected to grow 21.8% CAGR from 4,400 crores in 2019 to about 12,000 crores in 2023, almost a threefold jump in 4 years. While we understand subscription is still the gold standard, cash-strapped consumers are speaking with their wallets, and hence ad-backed video on demand will see a boom time again. And considering especially the exceptionally challenging times in the past few months, at the same time, what they've done is they've also thrown challenges and also redeveloped some of the content consumption patterns amongst other changes that we have observed in past 6 or 7 months. So I want to start by asking all the panelists to sort of share their point of view and what have they observed as the most recent trends, especially amidst these COVID times, and especially considering how the content consumption patterns have changed and there has been a drastic up movement on OTT platforms. And at the same time, how do these trends change advertising on OTTs? What kind of opportunities have they been delivering for the various brands? I mean, we can start with Vikram, if you want to go first, and then we can move on, a couple of minutes of everyone just to get a perspective.
Thanks, Sunny. Good afternoon, everyone. The digital ecosystem in India has actually been witnessing significant growth, which all of us have been part of. However, post-COVID, what we've really seen is what I may call fueling of a digital explosion. So the digital first approach, which has been echoing in boardrooms in traditional companies, is no more valid. The new mantra is now digital only. It is driving significant structural shifts across all industries, as we are seeing. So right from education and health, which are the basic necessities for any individual, going up to gaming, e-commerce, and entertainment consumption, everything has grown significantly. Well, we all understand that the consumer is hungry, but is also very, very discerning when it comes to content. I strongly believe 3 things are really setting the trends in the last few months: relevance, contextual, and data privacy. And as we all understand, the OTT explosion is happening in sync with the digital explosion. And this is largely because the OTT consumer is primarily the most engaged digital native. OTT spends, of course, will grow as OTT continues to grow. And the opportunities are immense. The opportunities are there for brands to build platforms and interact in a way that the prism of engagement is right at the center. For example, on our platform, which is enabled by blockchain, we enable brands to build digital goods, which is first of its kind to start interacting with users and deliver a high engagement quotient. So I strongly believe this new trend of digital explosion is going to break all records. And I'm referring to the recent forecasts which we are seeing in the industry right now.
Thanks, Vikram. Extremely insightful. I think all three aspects of relevance, contextual, and data privacy hold a very important role, in defining the advertising opportunities on OTT. I like to move forward and sort of ask Kunik as well to share some views, and in the recent trends that they have observed. Kunik, could you get me? Maybe somebody else would want to come in. Ravi, would you want to go for it till Kunik figures out?
Yeah, I mean, thanks, Sunny. Hi, everyone. Yes, I mean, echoing to what Vikram has said, I think the first big change that we noticed, especially in the advertising side, was this, definite prudence on budgets. Brands and advertisers are being extra careful and measuring each and every ad dollar that is being spent. And obviously, I think the last 6 months, our lives have changed. User behavior has changed. Consumption patterns have changed. Now, mobile has become the center stage in our lives. Home delivery, gaming, online shopping, social media. There's so many other interesting avenues that have opened up. I think the other big change I've seen is a lot of brands, especially in the smaller retail sectors, have started experimenting with digital, advertising. There's a lot of first-time advertisers, fence sitters that never got exposed, have started experimenting. So that's a healthy sign. And I believe that advertising-backed video on-demand services, are seeing a huge uptake, during this current crisis, and I believe that that's going to continue. And frankly speaking, TV and OTT players have definitely benefited. I think I can say from an audio platform perspective, we have seen a lot of trends of the way people changed their music, patterns, what they used to consume during office commute hours. That's changed. Late night streaming has almost tripled, right, from 10 o'clock till 2 o'clock in the morning. We've also seen a lot more demand for devotional, meditational type content pieces as well. So, a lot of our offerings, the way we promote is also changing. And I think an interesting fact, I think podcast has certainly gained a lot of popularity of late. So, we launched tons of almost about 100 odd podcasts, both syndicated and original format. And that's really, I think the demand is really high. And what's heartening to see is, a lot of these podcasts are getting consumed in Hindi and vernacular languages. So I think that kind of gives us a lot of confidence of that, these new users who are coming in to our platforms are also very demanding in the kind of content they're seeking. And the tastes, you get a flavor of the taste. So I think those are some interesting, trends and changes that we have seen. And I do believe that, this is going to be a more continuous, I think, possibly in the next few months, we'll get to see some more trends that are coming in as well.
Nice. And have you also observed the brands getting aligned to these trends as well? Especially the late night viewings. And do you think brands have started adapting to sort of targeting only when late night consumption goes up with specific content or specific messaging? Or
no, absolutely. I think from a brand's perspective, Sunny, I think what's really changed is their communication. I think a lot more brands are wanting to do communication around safety, around trust, and so on and so forth. I think that's kind of changed a lot. Sorry, that's my phone. I'm just going to put on mute.
That's all right. Okay. All clear. Those have been some of the challenges, working from home bring. So,
sorry, I'm back.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, that's something that we've also been observing, talking to a few players and also a lot of advertisers, that the messaging has changed. It's become, coherent with the contextual and relevant part that Vikram also highlighted. And, especially the content consumptions that you have been pointing out, and brands becoming more and more aware and utilizing ad tech to become extremely relevant and effective on messaging, especially. Perfect. Maybe then I quickly will move on to ask Siddhartha, would you want to throw some light about the trends that you've been observing?
Good afternoon, everyone. And I think a great forum that Adgully's put together. So in a nutshell, what Vikram and Ravi enthused and put out, very clearly what's ended up happening is that with the entire play out on COVID, what was to happen in India over an 18-month period with regards to the overall growth and consumption curve, those were shortened to as little as 60, 90 days. For us, we run a audio service. We also run a video service. The video was, completely went ballistic in terms of consumption, largely driven on the back of sizable amount of regional consumption, the fact that there's massive amount of personalization that is being driven through both AI and ML layers, because content discovery in platforms which are OTT driven becomes a challenge. And once the customer starts consuming some content and there is a structured content consumption habit that starts formulating, then you have an ability to funnel the customer in an interesting manner. This has led to some very, very interesting ad tech that can be brought in and is being brought in as we speak, where there is localization that is happening. We'd always heard about that getting played out in radio and in print. To some of our audio platforms, we had started to see localization come in, because brands would come in and specifically ask us for a city-based focused campaign and advertising. And now with video, what is ending up happening is there is a sizable amount of vernacular consumption and communication by brands which are local, wanting to target those audiences. In the beginning of COVID, what we saw was that the number of brands that were doing were fairly limited. But in the last 60 odd days, there's been a flood of brands which are both local and national, who are spending, advertising, and looking at creating new communities out there. So in terms of personalization, very clearly that's up there. That's leading to immersive consumption. It leads to ad tech and advertising that can be brought in to brands, which is a lot more immersive. How they tell their stories, as what Sunny was sharing, they're changing those scripts as well. And they're getting a lot more closer in the way they want to be communicating with their consumers in play. The other is the ad formats and its themselves. And I believe there's a lot of work that publishers are doing to get a lot more native with the ad formats. And that, I believe, over the next 6 to 12 to 18 months, you'll see constant evolution of that space, because as the consumption becomes mainstream and as advertisers start getting more and more money to that ecosystem, there is going to be that innovation that will continue based on publishers' content and publisher opportunities that publishers put out there in play. So in a nutshell, it is resounding in the same direction what the other panelists have spoken, but AI, ML, personalization, hyper-local consumption, if you've got the communities and traffic out there, all of that is going to benefit the larger growth in advertising.
Thanks, Siddhartha. Extremely beneficial to hear of that. I mean, we've been working around that space in the past, and now that the scale is there, it becomes extremely important to sort of utilize AI and ML, especially to create more relevance and again effectiveness. bringing technology play into here as much as possible, because eventually technology is the backbone of the entire industry. So perfect. Thanks, Siddhartha, for the opening notes. Anybody, would want to go next? Rajneel, would you want to share some notes about your views, how Z5 has been working closely with and supporting a lot of local as well as global brands in India in past months specifically, and I'm also aware that you're working quite closely on developing some of the ad tech.
Sure, Sunny. First, good to see you, and good to see so many people that I work with and interact with pretty much on a very regular basis on the same panel. So I know I'm in great company. I will not go global with what everybody has, very well articulated about what's happening in the ecosystem and what we've seen with users. I will just focus on what other, 3 or 4 trends that we've seen from the consumers on our platform. 4 key things that I could talk about. First is, as a part of the acceleration, the consumption on televisions has increased dramatically, and we see a large volume of consumption happening there. With that, what has also happened is the duration that users have been watching. The watch time per user, which is a very important metric of both measuring how good the platform is, and it matters to the advertisers because then there can be more ads. That has gone up. The third is when before COVID, we used to see clear peaks and troughs on when consumption was happening. So you'd have, for various types of content, morning peak when the content would pick up, and then you would see again content being consumed exponentially higher post, say, 7 o'clock in the evening. This has for us somehow flattened out. There are no troughs and peaks that are as sharp as before. It is almost near a straight line in terms of consumption, barring the dead spots late in the night, which are of course there. And the fourth thing that we see are the consumers becoming extremely vociferous about just getting ease of use. As more and more users have come onto the platform, they just want it simple to use. They don't want anything which you think is really fancy and nice to be done, to be on the platform. They want something simple. They want a near TV-like experience with all the intelligence which an OTT platform brings in to be at the touch of their finger, whether on a television or a mobile phone. So 4 key things. On the advertiser side, there are 2 things that particularly stick out, which have been, they have been there, but have kind of amplified during this period. The first one is around advertisers looking at measurability. Irrespective of the campaign size, they want more measurability. And this is fueled primarily from them wanting the dollars to go more and deliver more for them. And the second trend I could talk about is where they look at platforms like us for helping them optimize. It's not like it is their problem that they give you a certain demand and how it is to be met is only yours. They want a solution which can optimize the creative, that can optimize audiences, and really bring in a delight, just like you would for a consumer, even for the advertiser, of saying, okay, if this is what your objective was, I've been able to achieve it in far better metrics than we could have. So some, just quick things that stick out for me during this period.
Thanks, Rajin. Very insightful, and especially the measurement fact that you brought out. It is extremely important for the brands to be able to measure the value of investment that they're doing in each of these platforms. And having said that, most of the budgets that are moving towards the OTT platforms on video are coming from TV, or are predicted to come from advertisers who've been spending significantly on TV. And where the metrics and in general the way they measure everything is completely different as against is on digital, where more qualitative aspects come in as against quantitative. And I believe it is for us within the industry to sort of streamline everything for the brands and put it out on the platter to be able to measure the effectiveness of every dollar that they would like to spend. So great points there, Rajin. I'll come back to you with a few more in the next session. Vineet, would you want to talk a little bit about the ad tech piece? Because Brightcove has been sort of consistently working on building some good ad tech to the industry.
Sure, yeah. So Brightcove, thanks, Bijoya, and great to be here, Sunny, as part of the panel. Good to see some familiar faces. So essentially, the streaming industry is hot, right? Over the last 8 or 9 months, there's been a tremendous growth for Brightcove as a whole, whether it's global or India. We do a global video index where we do a lot of research on what's happening in the industry in terms of streaming numbers and the numbers of the charts. In India alone, numbers are up 40-50% same time, compared to the same time last year. There's a fantastic opportunity in the video space overall. We see the merging of content, technology, and commerce like never before. A personal favorite story is, the way what's happening in China in terms of content and commerce and how that's intensified is something to look at from a India OTT perspective. It's a trend that we see the people talking about from a customer point of view. And basically they've built a parallel live commerce engine, which basically gives incentives to the live streaming stars to sell everything from flowers to mobile phones using interactive video. So I think the next evolution that we see coming up very soon as a trend in the market is the convergence of the content and commerce industries. And we already see that with the short form platforms that are exploding. Z has launched one, a bunch of others are there in the market, and commerce is the next evolution. So I think from a trend perspective, if I'm a trend watcher, I think commerce and content merging is a theme. A few challenges that I'm seeing in the market, talking to customers, is that, newer platforms especially are falling prey to looking at only programmatic advertising. It might be a little controversial to say, but I am seeing that. And I think the idea is to marry the best of both worlds of getting programmatic and direct selling, where you can, hedge your bets, so to say. Because the programmatic engines will promise the advertiser more impressions for a smaller value and the publisher higher dollar value for a lower impression. So basically it's a oxymoron in many ways. So I think, and that's one. Second is, from a content owner perspective, they need to look at marketing content and building teams. One thing that we see in the market is that building the right team for your business, to leverage this opportunity is very, very important. And let the experts like Brightcove and the other ad tech players in the market do their job. And technology is easier to focus on, and focus on monetization, content, marketing, which are bigger challenges. So those are my 2 cents.
Absolutely, Vineet. I'll come back to you on especially on building technology versus using third-party partners and go deeper with you on that. In the meantime, I believe Kunik is back, and if you could sort of just share some opening notes, and we can sort of start delving into the other parts.
Yeah, thanks, Sunny. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So talking purely from an outsider point of view with regards to advertising, since we observe a lot of advertising being placed on the different OTT platforms, we've seen a lot of new categories and advertisers emerge on the OTT platform with regards to advertising. The traditional players who used to earlier advertise on OTT platforms obviously reduced their spends during COVID. However, we saw emergence of a lot of new categories and advertisers like CPG, online gaming, education, e-commerce take up all these spaces. And actually, as per a TAM report, we've seen the number of ad insertions on OTT platforms actually double in April as compared to March. So the space which was vacated by the traditional spenders on the OTT platform has been filled by new category of advertisers, is what we've seen and we've observed via InMobi. And also, as Rajneel also mentioned, there's a lot of emphasis now on the bottom funnel in terms of the campaign expectations. So now, earlier it was all about reach, frequency, awareness. We are seeing a lot of emphasis now on outcomes based on engagements, visits, or for that matter, any actions which can lead to an ROI, which can tie an ROI back to the specific campaign. So yes, those are the trends that we've observed from an InMobi point of view with regards to advertising on the different OTT platforms out there.
Thanks, Kunik, for sharing insights. I think picking on some points about the client KPIs and advertiser KPIs in general on digital platforms. We've seen in the past that majorly the KPIs have been getting delivered on two of the largest global platforms in Facebook and Google. And it seems that most of the budget allocation and priority has also been residing with these two platforms. However, now that we've seen emergence of content consumption patterns on OTTs and at the same time the advertising as such evolving within the OTT platforms with all the innovations that you've been speaking about and trends you've been highlighting. I wanted a quick POV, Vikram, maybe if you can come in and sort of share on how are OTTs perceiving Google and Facebook more as a co-operational platform, or do you think clearly, I mean, there is an opportunity to coexist because both are different. With Facebook and Google are more UGC, whereas OTTs are predominantly on-demand, owned, or partnership content. Where do you see the alignment here falling in, and how should brands look at both the large platforms as well as OTTs in conjunction to their priorities on getting KPIs?
Yeah. So Sunny, firstly, I would want to kind of add the point that, a user is a user. There is no classification of a user saying, hey, he's a OTT user, he's a Facebook user, he's a Google user. So users are everywhere, number one. Secondly, let's admit the fact here that the user is always ahead of the content creator or the content curator, whether it is UGC on social networks or whether it's PGC, which is professionally generated content on OTT platforms. So you just cannot beat the user. User is far ahead in the journey. So having said that, it's almost like a matrix. So there is nothing like, a Google, Facebook, and OTT players in isolation. I would say everybody lives in the same ecosystem. And what is good news right now is that the ecosystem is exploding, right? It's growing by leaps and bounds, and everybody is going to benefit in that space, whether you have professionally generated content or user generated content or whichever platform you belong to, OTT or social. But what is really most important and something which is pretty evident specifically in the last 6 months or so is that the pace at which revenue is moving while overall advertising pie is growing, but the pace at which digital is growing or will grow versus the traditional medium, specifically print, outdoor. We've seen theatrical revenues, although which is small. We're talking about TV, and TV now will or already has started having a new definition. The full form of TV is nothing but total video. So where is the video in your plan? And that's where OTT is going to come in and take a big pie. So I strongly believe there is substantial growth as we move forward. But just, kind of on a lighter note, in our industry, we keep using the word, binge watching. So I don't think OTTs are competing with the Facebooks or the Googles of the world. It's actually perhaps the only medium or the platform where you are competing with sleep time.
Okay, very well put out, Vikram. Completely clear on that. I think I hope the media planners start perceiving the same notion and start allocating the budgets accordingly as well. Siddharth, do you have any additional views to share or any point of view on that?
I mean, to look at another segment of the same mix, the fact that Google and Facebook are large ad tech partners. Okay, I mean, we're having an ad tech discussion, but we need to understand that the largest volume of traffic is moved by these two ad tech partners. And in turn, they technically co-opt with you or you are frenemies with them, where in the core funnel, there is sizable amount of demand generation, which is there. And direct advertising, for whatever it's worth, is still only taking what I'd talk about a percentage of this mix. In turn, if you've got a funnel and you've got sizable amount of supply, there are other entities who have the ability to take of that. Google and Facebook become the largest of the two funneled programmatic partners to be able to lift off inventory. So in that sense, you will continue to be extremely close with them. It also depends on how you deploy your content and how do you bring your destination out vis-a-vis the larger social networking play. How are you using top and tail content to drive consumers from sampling of the content on social directly into your destination where actual consumption happens, and in turn traffic and values the customer gets aligned for your advertiser to get value from that customer interaction in play. So all of this in that sense is symbiotic. And as the entire growth of the ecosystem is out there, and what Vikram was saying, it's exploding in that sense, it becomes for a completely connected traffic mix that the advertiser or the media planner needs to get into. So him turning around and saying, I want to be only spending on Google and Facebook, I believe for a certain category or for a certain objective that the brand puts out, you may be wanting to do that, but I don't see brands doing that anymore. Today, a media agency is touching base with you, is asking for what you can do for the brand on a one-to-one basis, and in turn, what you would call as the direct programmatic layer. It is actually programmatic because each of these guys are connecting to ad tech today. It's not that they're sending you, except for sending you a email with a release order. Nothing else comes to you, not even the creative. The creative comes to you for you to just give a basic, basic, the S&P that you have. Other than that, everything is programmatically being run. So when we talk about programmatic and direct, I mean, I believe that give it another 12 months, probably 95% of all advertising will be direct programmatic advertising.
Yeah, no, very valid point raised, Siddharth. I think that's been a bit of a debate as well, considering how programmatic will evolve against direct selling, especially when it comes to OTT. Also considering that the ad formats are getting quite common across all the platforms, and for advertisers, brands, and media planners to develop the communication creative assets around it is becoming more and more standard on typical measurements, and that's where I think the more seamless it becomes, the more relevant it will be. And yeah.
And Sunny, there's one more thing. Publishers also, I mean, Ravi asked, we've got great flexibility on our programmatics. Make no mistake. Yeah. It's not a one-sided affair. Ravi will come in here. We have complete control over what comes into our funnels here. Complete control. Right. From pricing, yield, categories, we can control it all.
Yeah. No, absolutely. We've been observing that, and I think that's more like a mental block now than the capability issue. And I think with more education and more awareness, and now that the industry is taking a very strong stand about collaborating and providing such education material to all the agencies, is going to be extremely beneficial. And it's a matter of time. And 12 months, let's hope it happens in 12 months. It's going to be good for the ecosystem. I assume Ravi would want to come in and sort of second what you said.
No, I mean, I agree. And coming back to the Facebook, Google, market scenario, it's like the necessary evil, like Siddharth said. We need them as well, and they need us. But it's a classic tech companies versus content companies. I think when we talk about OTT, both Google, Facebook were formulated as tech companies, and a lot of the OTT players that are in the market, owe their allegiance to big, large broadcasters and content creators, the HBOs and the Warner Brothers and so on and so forth of the world. So, I think that's where there's a bit of a demarcation. I personally believe very strongly that OTT platforms offer, a far more premium quality of audiences, as well as a better native experience in a completely brand safe environment. And I think it's a great balance between reach and impact from a media planning perspective. Also the possibilities of, innovation, creativity around content. And don't forget that a lot of these big content companies that have launched or branched into, OTT players have content that Indian audiences are already familiar with, the formats and all. And I think that makes a big difference. And it makes a compelling reason, to be on such platforms. So, and put it jokingly, classic Hertz versus Avis, case study where Avis was always number 2 and they said, we try harder. So I think when it comes to Facebook and Google, everybody else tries harder, to get that a piece of ad dollars. But I see that trend happening. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but we get invited to a lot of content days where the brief says, don't give us Facebook, Google type ideas. Give us something innovative. Give us something different that is more native and contextual to your platform. So I see that trend happening, and that's a healthy sign, coming from advertisers. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's a very healthy sign. I think it's a matter of time that it picks up scale also. And I assume all on this panel are hoping that it picks up the steam and then start delivering the scale that, these innovations are demanding now. And the interest that has been triggered with some of the media planners, typically, influenced by a lot of efforts that you all have put together. Talking about the infrastructure or the backbone or the precondition in a way that is enabling advertising on OTTs, it's the tech part, it's the technology, and there are clear sort of benefits in terms of having our own proprietary ad tech, which eliminates reporting discrepancies. At the same time, can be quite cost prohibitive also. On the other hand, when you work with sort of third party partners, there could be certain data privacy issues that could be unacceptable by brands, or their leakages. The more the players, the more sort of challenging it becomes to keep it seamless. Rajni, if you want to come in, because you have some tremendous product development background, and at the same time, I'm aware that you guys are significantly investing in building some ad tech at Z5. What is your POV? I mean, do you think it is more about building your own ad tech, or do you think working with third party players is more scalable or productive, keeping in mind that technology eventually becomes a commodity?
Sure, Sunny. One area I feel very passionate about, and I think I would put the question slightly differently, and that would be, what is the objective? And if you start with defining the objective, the route becomes very clear. If I was starting a particular OTT service today and I wanted to be in market in 3 months' time, of course, you could not, for the love of money, be able to create an ad tech speed in 3 months' time and go to market. So you would have a go-to-market strategy. As you mature over a period of time, your objectives would change. And for us, at this point of time, to make it more relevant, the objective is two. Number one, how do I democratize a platform for advertisers outside of the top even 500? How are we able to take our platform to not only 5,000 but even more advertisers across the whole country, who should never be even needing to get in touch with us to start a campaign on a particular category or objective that they want to reach out. That's where we started building out our self-serve platform, which will see rollout in the next couple of weeks across the industry. We are in testing right now, and on that, the smallest of advertisers with a credit card would be able to come and, for their goals, be able to set up advertising to reach the audiences they want. That's on one side. On the other side, what we have been also looking at doing is, how do you drive more efficiency for the advertisers? So advertisers want to say, how do I drive efficiency? Now, to answer that question, you need some core technology in play to be able to do that. And a very simple part of it is, from an ad server that you might have on your platform, you need to be able to get the signals back. Who were the audiences to whom it was served, at what point of time? Did they react to the advertising in the way that you wanted to or not? So you need to be able to read all of that signal, or those signals coming in. And then it becomes important to have your own ad server. On top of that, if you were to optimize the advertising, which is for what the advertiser wants to do, whether for creatives or for the audiences, you would then need to have a AI ML layer, which is essentially focused on building this out. So again, putting this in perspective, I think it's about the maturity of the platform at where you are and the objective with which you need to judge this question. I don't think there's a right versus wrong, that always you need to build your own versus saying, you can always work with third-party partners. If you have the objective at the key, it becomes fairly simple to make these decisions. And these decisions are also not permanent. These decisions go through evolution. Even if you build your own stack, there might be pieces of the stack that you are either not interested in building right now, or somebody has a superior product in the market which you could use on a SaaS, which you take into your platform and move forward. So it's essentially about a combination of these which decides what the action should be.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Ajnil, for the insights. I think Vineet would want to come in and sort of defend the position of a third-party ad tech player, and sort of provide insights on why it is beneficial to work with a third-party partner, irrespective of the objectives that you have, because it is an early go-to-market with an immediate scale. And at the same time, there are more benefits that probably third party bring in amidst all the challenges and limitations that they have in terms of integrations. Vineet, you want to sort of come in and sort of talk a bit about it?
Yeah, sure. So I think, respecting everyone's opinion, including Rajni, I think what's happening is that, over the last 7 or 8 months, COVID has hit people like a thunderbolt, right? So people are figuring out, okay, I need to get my video strategy in place and I need to launch fast. So I think there's a trade-off, as Rajneel says, between time to market and the kind of features you want to offer. In our experience, again, I think Rajneel mentioned this earlier, most of the consumers want simplicity, and the content owners want data and want to monetize their content. It's as simple as that. So I think, basically from a technology perspective, there is a trade-off. Time to market means you need to work with certain fixed solutions. They're templatized. Focus of the platform is the content. And that's what really differentiates you from the competition, is the platform, is the content and the experience that you're offering, obviously, but clearly is the content. And then customization on these solutions and based platforms is possible, but in like any tech, any customization will take time. And it's a question of whether you want to not miss the boat and launch fast, and then start iterating as you launch. So it's a debatable point there, but in our experience, a lot of people are in a huge hurry to launch their OTT platforms right now, especially on regional and especially on direct to OTT, which is the theater experience, which a lot of folks are now trying to offer.
Yeah. Thanks, Vineet, for coming in here. I mean, with OTT space, especially, we've observed that there are a lot of stakeholders who are utilizing technology, and it's more like an ecosystem, not just with advertisers and sort of advertising and placements, but it is also a lot of creative art directors, content producers, all engaging with the same platform, and but in silos. So, I want to reach out to Kunik and ask, what is your point of view about, third parties coming in and providing a more integrated approach? Is it viable, feasible, or is it recommended, or is going to stay like a challenge?
Sure. So Sunny, you're right in the sense that there is a lot of precise consumer data that is now being generated and tracked across the different platforms that we have. However, the question is how much of that data is now being made available or is made available to advertisers, or for that matter, agency planners outside of these platforms, right? Uh, so there has been hesitations from the OTT players as well in terms of sharing their first party data with a lot of external third party platforms. For example, OTT players would not want to share data on the customer, for example, who might have seen ad on their platform with a third party platform. So in a sense, it might create problems when a particular advertiser has multiple OTT players in the media mix. And what will happen is that an advertiser will end up reaching the same user with the same ad across different ad platforms, right? So the need of the hour is to have a unified frequency setup as well across the different OTT players. But in the sense, unlike a TV or a print, there is a lack of industry measurement matrix also, which is creating an issue for both the OTT players and advertisers alike. So this is something that in the absence of a unified measurement currency, advertisers are therefore dependent on whatever data is provided to them by individual platforms, or for that matter, third-party platforms like Nielsen, DA, Moat, IS, whatever they might be. And I feel that is something which will continue for some time unless we have consensus amongst the players to share more of their first-party data for with advertisers and agencies to use and target their campaigns. And until then, an integrated approach using third-party support, though very much desired in the current scheme of things, looks difficult to achieve at in the current setup.
Thanks, Kunit, for the insights. I think we are quite running out of time here, and I want to bring this session. I mean, it's been quite involving, and we seem to have lost track of time. And I believe I want to bring it to closure by asking each of you, and we can start with you, Kunit, to sort of share what are the current innovations that you have seen in OTT space advertising, and what do you believe are going to be something as a trend that we could look at in times to come? It could be through infrastructure. It could be through the entire leverage of ecosystem. Well, what do you observe could be a remarking change here, and at the same time highlight any innovation that you want to talk about?
Sure, Sunny. So I think the introduction of 5G in the coming quarters, or for that matter, in a year's time, would change the entire landscape for OTT for sure. In a sense that 5G will not only improve the users' consumption of content on the OTT platforms, but also give them a much faster and more reliable internet speed at the same time, right? So in a context, a 5G speed is more than 100 times more powerful than a 4G LTE speed if you compare apples to apples. For some context, it will give the users an ability to download a full HD movie in less than 10 seconds right now, if it takes almost 10 minutes in the current 4G setup, right? So I think a 5G is something that we should look out for, especially from an OTT space. And also this, what will allow the different platforms, especially OTT players, would be to also experiment with a lot of innovation. So AR, VR, whatever that might be, would also enable the platforms to test it out, which currently in the current scheme of things, they think would take a lot of bandwidth. So that is something that probably is something to look out for in the coming quarters, or for that matter in a year's time.
Perfect. Thanks. Yeah, I think infrastructure plays an important role, and sort of helps you trend sets as well as sets trend as well as define certain perspectives. Now, thanks, Kunik, for these views. Vikram, I want to come to you and ask you a very basic question on why innovation is so important in advertising. Besides asking you for some of the insights on innovations that you observed in OTTs. Why is innovation as such important, especially when it comes to OTTs? Is it going to be just a novelty factor, or do you think it sort of helps in building or changing the advertiser perspectives on looking at the platform for engaging with their audiences? And what trends do you see becoming important in next months?
Yes, absolutely. Sunny, for me, innovation is now a necessity. It's almost like a breath of fresh air that we need in these current times, right? So, but what is necessary is, innovations can't be a one-off. It has to be delivered at scale necessarily and consistently over a long period of time. Only then that they build successful business models. So, for example, what we are building on our blockchain platform right now is something with consumer at the center, completely consumer centric. We are building a fans first approach, which ensures a good brand user experience in terms of interaction. So brands will be enabled to build digital goods. Their physical goods are converted to digital goods. And what we are building on top of this for the user is a gamified ecosystem where you can win rewards. So every interaction of the consumer, consumption of content, liking, sharing, watching, inviting friends, will actually get them to earn rewards. Now, innovations like these then need to become part of the ecosystem, unlike the previous cases or the game shows, etc. You say that on my platform, I will do a watch and win. And the future is actually very, very promising when it comes to, tech infrastructure development. And the last 6 months have taught us that, the power of consumer ability to adopt and quickly bring together and adopt technology, which they would have taken years to adopt. So there are a lot of people here, I'm sure, who are very, very deprived. It's IPL season going on. You're love to watching it in stadiums. You're not able to go there. You're not able to go to theaters. And there's a sense of getting out there and doing it. Now, you obviously look at alternatives. So for sure, in the near future, you are going to see bringing larger than life entertainment into your hands, which is into your mobile itself. And your handset is then not just going to define personal content consumption, which has been happening for a while. It's not just going to be video on demand. It's going to be innovations and experiences. So you will be able to soon, if you are not able to get into the IPL stadium, you will be able to experience through technology, stimulating stadium type experience. You will be able to watch with your loved ones a theatrical experience at home with much more interaction. So I don't think it's very far away. The need is there. Like I've said earlier, the consumer is ahead of content creators and curators. The need is there. We all have to fulfill it.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Vikram. I think this has been one of the facts that got highlighted in past months, especially the limitation of the user and the power of the platform. And we've seen a lot of AR come into play. With shoppable content coming across on screens, and we heard it from one of the panelists in the past also. Siddharth, would you want to talk a little bit about all these innovations, especially that have been coming in, and creating a new wave of the user experience on OTTs, and therefore the brand engagement with these users as well?
Sure. So one of the, if you look at China, and China's been probably one of the largest innovators in this space because their ecosystem is so closed, and the fact that they've got maturity across the board on the digital space quite early on. Today, if you were to look at the entire OTT space, move into what you call as larger screens, or what you would call as a lean forward vis-a-vis lean back approach structures. The TV over there is truly smart today. There's an example of a service which is owned by Hisense called Juhao Khan, which is currently the largest TV-based commerce and content consumption ecosystem. From the Alibabas, the Tencents, all of them bring in their content within that ecosystem, and from there they drive commerce in play as well. To just share with you, I mean, last year the numbers were roughly about 350 million US in total turnover. Roughly 42 million used cards on file from on a monthly basis, and that's the kind of ecosystems that are being driven out there and growing and flourishing in that sense. So the way we look at it is that OTT or video is not only going to be a mobile uh, experience as better connectivity comes in. What Kunik was also sharing, there is going to be an explosion of this consumption in every type of device in play. And to me, that is very clearly the opportunity that stares in front of us. Sky is the limit. All values are growing a double digit. The fact that there will be consumers, there will be traffic. The fact is advertisers will come here. The fact is that you need to have top of the line ad tech for them to be able to get the optimization of the dollar that they are moving with you. And
Thanks.
all of that is part of an ecosystem that each of us need to put out there. So you've got sustainable businesses that are being built for the future.
Thanks, Siddharth. Thanks so much for these insights. I think we're looking forward to some of these innovations that have been happening in other markets to come to Indian market as well. Rajni, anything that you want to highlight that you guys have done in the past few months as an innovation, or something that you're already planning on, or as a trend?
A lot of these areas I think we have spoken about, and in the interest of time, we're not going to repeat them. However, I do think that over the 6 to 12 months, as we look forward, two key areas that we are very sharply focused on, and I think if I look from the advertiser side, that resonates. One is the efficiency in done, whether it's a process, whether it's the type of ads, etc. Innovation, micro innovations, rather than one big innovation which solves that efficiency challenge, will always keep us on our toes. And the second is transparency. Well, where we have come from and where we are right now, it is getting to be more demanding, both from the consumer side, where they say, hey, where is my data and how do I know it's secure? And from the advertiser side, saying that, okay, as they move from just relying on your data into industry bodies or their own trackers to be able to achieve it, how do you keep innovating to keep delivering that to them? And then eventually, and it is already happening, where first-party data they want to leverage to be able to go onto other platforms and then be able to, in a very secure environment, we look that up for retargeting or anything else. But at the core of it, again, will be the transparency that you provide to them, that whether it's blockchain technologies or hashing mechanisms, that the data exchange which is happening between both the parties is absolutely secure, and nobody is, and they are secure that it's held by a third party and it is not really going back to be wrongly used at either side. So I think two key things which have always been important and will continue to be important.
Thanks, Rajnil, for these notes. We'll be watching out. I think transparency has been one of the key asks of everyone.
Hi everyone. Request you to please end the session because our next session has to begin urgently. We have gone.
We're just waiting for some final notes from Ravi and Vineet, and we should be calling it an end.
No, I would request you, sir, to close it now because we have gone beyond 15 minutes, 20 minutes of the time.
Okay.
And the next panel will be completely in jeopardy. Yes.
Okay, cool. Noted. I'm sorry, guys, that we cannot finish this while it was getting really, really interesting to hear all of you. We over-explained some of the facts, and I believe we covered most of the things. And we will be answering all the questions offline now. So thank you all the panelists for sparing your time and being available. And thanks, Adgully, for organizing this.
Thanks, Sunny.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sunny. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you. And